call the meeting to order of our board meeting on Tuesday, October 14th. And our first item is to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Postpone item number 3.
Okay, all right, thank you. I've been informed that item number 3 will be postponed on the agenda today. So the motion would be to approve the agenda with that.
With that change, yes.
Okay,
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? There appears to be none, so we'll move on. Approval of the bills and vouchers.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, our 8:35 item, Brian, you're going to come over and handle this one. This is a resolution proposing a Polk Norman Clay Agassiz Recreational Trail Advisory Committee.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yes, I will introduce it, and Commissioner Gross will assist. He's been the representative on that trail, so he can expand on it for the board's information. But just a little bit of background there. You're well aware that the Agassiz Recreational Trail was a consortium, or was a joint powers, I should say. It is a joint powers. It hasn't had its final meeting yet, but of Polk, Norman, and Clay County. And most recently, you've been represented on there by Commissioner Gross. And you have passed resolutions over the last couple months of disbanding that joint powers agreement and then handling the trails independently. And this resolution is to form a committee of those 3 counties to meet a few times a year to talk about that. And so I don't say all the stuff. Why don't I turn it over to Commissioner Gross?
Well, I just feel that going this way would be a better way to doing it. I think since our part of the trail is only 5 miles, I think we can better maintain that thing, just being an independent, handling that, taking care of that trail ourselves, not being involved in the whole thing, and I know what this resolution says that one of the board members be a part of it, and I'd be willing to serve on that board too. I just think it's a better way to go.
Well, I think without objection, I think that he's been serving on that, and I would, if there's no objection, I would just say that, Frank, you should just continue on in that role with that committee. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's great. I guess I have a question about how this new committee will function. It'll just be, there won't be any authority together. We'd be responsible for our own mileage, but we'd be there to advise and to coordinate work. Is that how you see it?
Well, we'd have to maintain it, Normally the snowmobile clubs maintain it. We just have to see that it's maintained. It's going to be regulated just like any county road. I think we're going to put this under the highway department, I think, as far as maintenance. And
Roads are anyway, but we haven't decided on the trail, or I think that's a good suggestion.
But we are only responsible for our own portion of it.
Right.
Okay.
So have we had any dialogue with the Clay County clubs to coordinate working on that with us to do the maintaining of those? And do we have some sort of a proposed, how is this funded? The maintenance of it, how is it funded? Brian, do you have a...
Well, I do, and yes, there's been quite a bit of dialogue with those groups up there. There's some unfinished business that is being taken care of as well with the bridge, and making some progress certainly on the settlement of the bridge issue. But there has been contact with some of those clubs as to how it's going to be handled. But probably the biggest issue is getting everything acceptable to DNR, because DNR funds these maintenance of these trails, and we're going to continue to be the Agassiz Recreational Trail. It'll be a consortium of the 3 counties, and that's why I think it's important that they have the committee so that they can communicate as to what is going on and see if there's any problems with it. Right now, when a problem arose, the joint powers really didn't have the authority to deal with those land issues, and that's where the breakdown came. Now it'll fall back on the county commissioners of each of those counties to handle it, whether it be a land issue or a cost issue or whatever, that you want to do more or less on that portion of the trail.
So who on behalf of the regional trails will submit the necessary paperwork that would go to the DNR for funding? Who's going to do that? Because the Joint Powers Board is now going to cease to exist.
Right. What we have been, and Commissioner Gross mentioned that, is that we've been kind of looking to, and I say kind of looking to the highway engineers of this. The Polk County Highway Engineer does manage their trails up there right now, other than this Lake Agassiz or the Agassiz Recreational Trail, and they are going to continue to do it. They've invested quite a bit of time in this. They have the biggest portion of the trail. I shouldn't say the biggest portion. Norman County is just probably as many miles.
They got a lot.
They got a lot too. So I know they're looking at their highway engineer, looking at that from a maintenance standpoint
And
as well.
then I have one more question. The way that system works, so if we'd be looking at turning this over to our highway engineer, a lot of times the funding follows after the fact, or does this money come in before the work is done, and would we then have to have Dave establish some sort of a revenue and expenditure budget for that item?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. Norman County had been the fiscal host in the past, and I think, I'm not positive of this, but I think DNR would just as soon have one county be the fiscal host for that granting mechanism. And what our intentions are, our hope is that a snowmobile club will be the one that will monitor. So it'll be one or maybe even two clubs that will go the trail for the whole section of it. And again, we have 5 miles down on the southern end, so we're fairly minute. So it is our desire, I think, that one of the counties be the fiscal host, one of the others, and we just keep track of the funds in this segment and what needs to be done, and any extra costs or anything that would need to be done for just our small stretch was the idea. Those are still in the process of being worked out, I guess.
Yeah,
So-
there's already been one club that's volunteered to do the grooming.
For Clay County's portion? Good. All right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the resolution.
Okay.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
And Mr. Chair, if I may comment on this, I
Yes.
think this is a real positive move. I mean, it's not there yet, but I have to compliment Commissioner Gross. He really initiated getting this, if you remember right, about 6 months ago, getting this down the right track. And then there was a presentation here, and you, Mr. Chair, said, we got to get our arms around this and get it settled down. And I have to thank Commissioner Gross for
No,
his work on this.
I can echo that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for that work. Okay, thank you. Our next item has been pulled, and unfortunately, our next two items are time sensitive to a public hearing and opening sealed bids. Joe, can we maybe bring you up and talk about your purchase request? Come on up, please. So we're jumping item number 6 up, our 910 item here, and that is a request to purchase sweeper for the maintenance tractor.
Yep, good morning. I want to, we're going to talk about the proposals for the people who do the maintenance for the parking lots, but this is a different deal. The maintenance department, the maintenance department takes care of the sidewalks and everything, and the entryways and all the smaller areas. And so I've taken a better look on how we can maintain this campus a little bit better. In the past, what we've done is thrown down salt and sand to try to create an environment that nobody slips, and that's our biggest responsibility. And but what happens is we get a lot of salt and sand tracking to our buildings. It's tough on our equipment and everything else. So I called around, talked to other entities, see what they do, and the main theme that I took away was that they sweep, and that's all they throw down salt and sand when they have to, but sweeping is a big thing that they do. Right now, we have a 4-foot sweeper, I believe, that goes onto our skid steer, and what that does is when the situation calls, we can use it, but it limits our ability to use it during the day, and a lot of times it snows obviously during the day, and so then that causes us to have to go throw down salt and sand. So my plan would be to get a sweeper for our John Deere. We can throttle it back. It's not as intense, doesn't spray over cars, and it's a safer deal. So in pricing it out, I believe it was $3,300, $350. Right now, we do have that money in our budget, I believe, right, Brian? In our snow removal budget. So other than that, I would like to request approval for this. Yeah, I go ahead.
I was just going to make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Brian?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and Joe referred to the funds in the snow removal budget, but he has also taken the initiative and cleaned up a lot of the scrap iron around the campus, and he's on schedule to sell for about $1,500 worth of that scrap metal. And I said, I think the board would be very pleased to hear that, and he wants to purchase this in hopes of reducing some of the ice in the entrance and the amount of salt that's used around the entrance and the cleanliness of the inside with tracking in that chemical and salt with that smaller sweeper. And he even offered to look at trading off that big sweeper on the skid steer, and I said, for what you'll get on a trade-in. And this is really kind of has to be single source, a John Deere, because it's a John Deere machine that he's buying it for, and those are some of the things that we talked about in regards to it.
I think we're coming up on about 2,000 for that scrap metal, so you can have a pretty good idea of some of the junk that was around here when we cleaned up. But yeah, Brian was right. We're hoping to offset that with that revenue coming in. So,
John?
I know the scrap metal market is very flexible, so if you sell it quick, don't wait, or it'll be worthless down the road.
oh yeah, well I'll tell you what, we're getting rid of it as soon as possible. To be honest with you. So clean the place up a little bit. So
Very good. I guess I didn't understand from this that you're talking about selling the existing one?
No, at first when I came to Brian with this, I had an idea to trade off our sweeper, and he's actually right. There's some situations it's more of a heavy-duty sweeper, so that helps us with our parking lots, or if we need to. We've really used it before, but it's an intense thing to bring on the sidewalks and when people are around. So this other sweeper is kind of more of a throttled back, where we can do it all day, or when we need to during the day, without it being a safety hazard.
Is it the tractor that you normally use for mowing grass?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We can. What we would do is we'd blow the snow. If we get a big snow, we'd blow the snow, and then we'd come by with the sweeper again.
Okay.
And we wouldn't eliminate throwing down salt and sand when we need to, but we would throw it down and then let it do its work, and then sweep it away. Try to clean up the mess inside the buildings too. So.
Very good.
Okay, any further comments or questions regarding the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Joe. All right, we'll move to item number 4. We're within a minute here of... Yeah, she's not going to be here today. Yeah, I think we're good to go here. It is 8:45. We're good to go. Okay, our next item is a public hearing regarding a 2-year residential property tax abatement program, and Jenny could not be here today, so we have explaining this process to us again is Brian Berger, County Administrator. And before we start discussion, we need a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the hearing. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, Brian, and on this issue, we have received information in our packet, right? So
Yes.
you can You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and we just reviewed this a little bit, and we did have at least 2 meetings, and I know Commissioner Wayland attended both those, and I think you attended one as well, Mr. Chair. And if you remember, 2 years ago, you passed a 2-year residential abatement for construction of new homes, and the city had come before you, the Moorhead City had come before you and said that they were going to extend or pass a new resolution, extending the resolution for 2 years, and asked, I think, of the county to do the same. The county is in a little different position on this. Even though the city is a taxing base, the school district is a taxing base, the townships, and then the county is a taxing base, we all have to pass rebates if we want the abatement to apply to the county tax for the cities that this is built in. And there is a little bit of uniqueness in this because each of the jurisdictions will have to pass a resolution in order for ours to apply, and then ours will mirror theirs. And what I'm saying there is we got into a discussion of excuse me, when the abatement starts. Is it upon construction or is it after completion of it? And then also, for example, the city of Holly has had a cap on their abatements of $200,000. And I think it's the city of Barnesville's, theirs starts after completion, and Moorhead starts at the beginning of completion. So there is a different structure to each one of these, and ours will take on the format of whatever that jurisdiction is taking on. And that's kind of the idea of it. So I think we should know that, and the abatement for the county is for the full value of the property and the land for the first 2 years of construction, of after construction. So, and I say after construction, but in one sense, it's the beginning of construction.
It depends on the jurisdiction we're matching.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
According to what we're passing.
That's correct.
Right.
That is correct.
Karen, I want to invite you up if you want to come up. Karen is the Economic Development Coordinator with the City of Barnesville, and she's kind of been involved in some of our committees going forward on this. And if you can be there, if you want to come up and sit at the chair,
Okay.
you can do that too, Karen. I just thought you drove all the way from Barnesville. We should allow you to have an opportunity to come in
Thank you.
and talk to us on your thoughts on this as well. So.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to update you on Barnesville's perspective on this. First of all, we want to express from the city's perspective our thanks that you passed it 2 years ago. It's been a good program. We've probably not built as many new homes as Moorhead, but this year we have 7 new homes that are under construction, and there could be a couple more. And so we've seen some lots that have been on the market for quite some time have been sold, and homes are being built. These were lots that, in one case, was a tax forfeit lot. In other cases have been lots that the city has been sitting on for some time. So it's been a very effective program, and as Mr. Reddingler said at the last meeting, when people are looking to build new homes, they are comparing the programs. They are looking at Fargo and West Fargo. And when we have a proactive program like this, it really positions all of the communities in Clay County as being progressive and certainly sending the message, we want you to come to Clay County. So thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Berg, for clarifying the question about our resolution versus the language difference with the city of Moorhead. It was important to the City Council of Barnesville and the EDA that our language is the 2 years take place after construction is complete. So it adds depending on the stage of the house on January 1st of each year, it could be a small difference or it could be a more significant difference. And we felt strongly that we wanted it to be clear-cut that was after construction was complete. So we appreciated Jenny taking a look at the resolution language and Brian helping through
And
that
I guess
process.
I've been assured that our language does cover all of the different variables that each local jurisdiction has passed. So I would think we're in good shape there. So we would be, Clay County would be matching Barnesville's in your instance, and then we'd also be matching Moorhead's in their instance, and Hawley's in theirs, if they so choose, so. All right. Well, and, thank you, Karen, too, for your involvement on this. And you mentioned 7 homes. Well, that may not sound like a lot in consideration to Moorhead, like you said, but from a percentage standpoint in Barnesville, it's a significant.
It's significant, and the last home that we're working on right now, and they hope to start construction in a couple of weeks, is a $430,000 home. So that's going to add significant tax base both to the county as well as the city. So.
And the school district.
And the school, yes.
Yeah, so.
Does this apply to contractors too? If contractors put up a bunch of houses, or does it have to be a resident? Is this for an individual?
If a contractor does a spec house, it will apply to that property too, I'm quite certain. We've not had any spec houses done in Barnesville. But is that not your understanding, Brian?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is my understanding as well.
So it'll be when he completes it or when he sells it?
It goes by that community again.
Oh, okay.
It's whatever the community.
So in our particular case, our language is when the home is at full value, and there's quite a lag in that because of the way taxes are done in Minnesota. So for homes that are built in Barnesville this year, payable 2015 is based on what was in place on January 1st, 2014. And so in our case, since it follows completed construction, if a house is finished this year, when the assessor goes on January 1st, 2015, and they deem it to be 100% complete, that'll be payable 2016. So in most cases, if a contractor is building a spec house, I would assume that they will sell it before payable 2016. If that makes sense. So essentially, the first party to benefit from the abatement would be, in most cases, the final homeowner.
So is that triggered by the final inspection, and then isn't there a certificate of occupancy that's usually issued?
There is, yep.
So is that the trigger then, when the certificate of occupancy would be
Yes.
granted? That's when it's considered complete?
Yeah, in our particular case.
Okay.
That's different with the city of Moorhead.
Okay, all right. John?
Excuse me. But wouldn't it be, if it has not been sold to a family or to an individual, the developer would get whoever is being taxed at that
They
particular
would.
time?
I would think so,
Yeah,
yeah.
they would.
Yeah.
But, again, that's a long time for a contractor to sit
Oh,
on a spec
absolutely.
house.
Yeah.
Not that it couldn't happen, it certainly has and will in the future, but.
And Brian, how does this address, because when we did this, I thought we also had something in there for remodeling as well.
You do, yes.
Does that change, or does that follow the same guidelines?
Follows the same guidelines, yes.
So somebody who wants to make major improvements, because I think there's some dollar thresholds on that, right?
Yes,
I don't
yes,
have
there
the
is.
stuff in front of me, but, so none of that changes.
None of that changes.
So property owners also have the opportunity, if they want to increase their values or do some major work to their properties, they can also have access to these incentives.
Right. And I know there was 2 thresholds there. I think it was 25,000 and 50,000 for multi-dwelling.
Right, there was one for
apartment
single and then
housing
one
things.
for apartments.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. Okay, well, we are in public hearing, and at this point in time, if there's, I'll ask the members of the public if there's anybody who would care to speak. And it appears there are none here for this issue. Any other comments or questions from the warden?
No. Mr. Chair, I would like to publicly read through the resolution, because Jenny said it was important that we point out a couple things by statute. So,
Well, I would be more than happy to let you read
or if you would like to read through it, that would be great too. But
Yes.
she made very pointed comments to me that there are some things that need to be
All right. Pointed out. All right, very good.
So, okay, so whereas Minnesota statute 469.1813-4 through 469.1816 grants Minnesota counties with the authority to offer current or prospective tax abatements under certain circumstances, and whereas Clay County has received a request from the City of Moorhead and evidenced by the City of Moorhead's resolution number 2014-0908-2, unanimously approved by the Moorhead City Council on September 8, 2014, to join with the City of Moorhead and participate in Moorhead's 2-year residential property tax abatement program, and whereas other political subdivisions within Clay County have also expressed interest in establishing their own residential property tax abatement program and their desire for Clay County to participate in those programs. And also witnessed here today that Barnesville's here talking about it. Whereas the Clay County Board of Commissioners held a public hearing in this matter on October 14, 2014, and whereas the benefits of a 2-year residential tax abatement program will at least equal to the cost Clay County will incur through the abatement program, and whereas the implementation of a 2-year residential tax abatement program is in the public interest and it will increase tax base and provide employment opportunities. These are the points that she said needs to be pointed out. And whereas it is the desire of Clay County to participate in a 2-year residential property tax abatement program consistent with those adopted by local entities, now therefore be it resolved that Clay County will participate in a 2-year residential tax abatement program as resolved by any taxing entity within the county, assuming such authorizing resolution is adopted by the entities on or before December 31st, 2014. Be it further resolved that the eligibility, option, and application of county residential tax abatement program abatements will match that of each individual entity's authority authorizing resolution. So that's very pointed that we match theirs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, we have before us a proposed resolution. What's the board's wishes?
Mr. Chair, I would move the resolution as just read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. And again, I just want to emphasize that Karen pointed out something very important. And that's the fact that the competing areas that we have around us have these types of incentives available to people looking to build in their communities. And, you know, so to remain competitive, for example, with those people on the North Dakota side of the river, we have to have this in place. Wouldn't you say that's correct, Karen?
I would.
All right. Okay, so with any other comments or questions, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll move on to our 9 o'clock item, which is the open sealed quotes for snow removal. I'm assuming the deadline for those, Finn, was this morning at 8:30?
8:30, yes.
Okay, so you have them? All right. And it's my understanding now, Brian, maybe you can explain this, but these are proposals, and we're not required to take the high or the low or whatever, but we
Thank you.
can review them all and see what all options they have. All right.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair. I have worked with Joe on this. Joe has done all the work, but Vicki and I coordinated a little bit of the paperwork with him and things. So and you touched on it very well. The snow removal process is a professional service, and we're not required to bid it per se, but we want to get the best value in the work that's being done for, I'll say, the best value for the county. And that's what we've got on this sheet, that proposals will be reviewed and brought back to the county board with a recommendation. And we will be very specific and articulate why we are recommending to the board a particular service. So that'll be next week. So Joe is going to review them, and we'll discuss it and bring them back to you guys for a recommendation next week on this. This is, again, this is for a service. It's not a competitive bid per se. It's competitive in the nature that we want the best value for the county. So with that, Mr. Chair,
All right,
go ahead.
yeah, please proceed.
Why don't you go ahead and open them up.
Okay. First envelope I got is from Gopher Excavating.
Mr. Chair? Joe, where is Gopher Excavating from?
They have a shop over in South Moorhead, it looks like here, 2530
Thank you.
20th Avenue South.
Yeah, if you can just give, if it's a Moorhead bid.
A Moorhead, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Or Fargo? or-
Yeah, wherever city they're from.
okay. Yeah, you can.
It looks like they have furnished the proof of insurance, liability insurance, which we did request from them. And then they did offer, and this was the form that was sent out, asking for quite a bit of information on their equipment, but realizing that there's different processes and procedures that they may handle. Some may want to load the snow right out of the street, some may spray a chemical, some may use salt and sand and things, and this is some things we have to evaluate. So since we did ask for this information, I think we'll read it out loud so that everybody knows what we're looking at. And it was a list of the equipment. The loader make was a Kosmaska 380 with $90 per hour. Another loader at $85 an hour, a smaller loader, a 180. Tandem axle trucks, at least two of them at $65 an hour. A skid steer loader at $55 an hour, that's a Bobcat 773. And then pickups with sanders on it for $50 an hour. A sand per yard, $30 per hour, or $30 per yard, sorry. And chemical per gallon cost plus 10% if required. And then it goes on to list the information provided. And that is going to be, of course, some of the information that we use. And then we also talked about the hours of availability, because we need this cleared out fairly early on. I think it was by 6:30 in the morning, as we asked for in the bid. So Gophers looks very complete. They are the ones that have been doing the business around the courthouse for a number of years. So
Next business for Key Contracting from West Fargo. Right now, they've also sent in 2 envelopes, it looks like here.
Okay, for key contractor listing dozers, it's a John Deere 85 or 850J. It's a 205 horsepower at $140 per hour. And frankly, I guess for you gentlemen, and probably are well aware of this, especially if you've had some experiences, but also the audience that may be watching, It's tough to compare exactly per hour rates, because if you have a bigger machine, you can do more per that hour. So I think you know that, but we have to take that into consideration. They have a Case 750K and a 90 horsepower engine at $110 per hour. It's got a grader at $90 an hour, and $75 for a remote compactor. And I imagine that's something that loads the snow. And then some excavating machines. He lists just a number of them all the way down the line. Frankly, it's really too many to read off, so. Assuming there's
How about like
insurance.
for tandem trucks, so we can kind of get the comparables?
Okay. Loader, skid steer, tandem, triple act dump trucks, various models, 4 of them, $80 an hour. It's 10 to 12. That's the yards, I'm assuming, 10 to 12. So that'd be your basic gravel truck. Normally they hold 10 to 11 yards, I know, of gravel.
How many do they say they have?
4, various models, and $80 an hour.
Are we bidding these contracts per hour or per year, or how does it work out? I mean,
Yeah. This is what we advertised was this would be a 3-year contract, service contract. So do we bid it by hour, or?
I mean, does it depend how much snow we get, or do we just pay him so much a year to do it?
No,
By the hour.
it's by the hour. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
by the hour, and these rates are locked in for that 3-year period.
Very good, thank you.
Trucking, he's got a tractor and lowboy, a 60-ton, that's $300. I imagine that's how they move their equipment around or something. Tractor, 53-foot, flatbed at $120 an hour, and tractor and side dumps, $120 an hour for, those are the semi-trailers that dump.
How about
snow.
sand? What's that per yard? Does he have a-
Yeah, that's a good one.
Here it is $50, or cost per hour, I guess, it doesn't say yard.
Okay.
Yeah, that's second
Oh,
envelope
you
for
did,
that.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Chair, there was a second envelope that did list this same format.
Okay, all right.
And the loader, he had at $120 an hour, and I named the model of that.
Okay.
The 2 tandem axle trucks at $85 an hour. The skid steer loader, Bobcat, at $95 an hour. The pickup sander at $75 an hour. And then sand per yard at $50.
And that's their insurance.
And they have liability coverage on the insurance.
All right.
And there's a third one.
Yep, this is the third and final one. It's from Glacier Snow Management Company out of Moorhead.
Is that everything in that packet?
That's everything in there, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We have the insurance form, and then we also have the spreadsheet that was sent out, so that'll make it a little easier. I'll just run over it real quick. Loaders, said 7 cat models, 928 to 930. That's a model. With Arctic box plows, $135 an hour. Another loader, 6 cat, it says 914 to a 924. And I know to construction people, that's going to mean something. $135 an hour. And the quad axle trucks, he said here, he's crossed out tandem quad, $85 an hour for those. The skid steer loader at $95 an hour. The pickup sander, de-icing equipment, he's got 3 tandem to semi Schmidt Slaters, it says. Sand per yard, no sand, treated salts with liquids added at 35 cents pound spread, looks like, and chemical per gallon would be $3.50. I'm gathering from this information that he does not spread sand, that he uses a de-icer chemical on it.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Chair, as you can see, these have to be analyzed and compared, and hopefully we'll bring back and we'll articulate why we are making a recommendation to the board and for the best value of the county in our estimation and other information. This may require a follow-up call to each of these or some of them for clarity and comparison, and also calling other places to really determine what is the best fit for the county. So,
All right.
with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and it is anticipated that you will be back here on the 21st with a recommendation.
Yes, the next Tuesday.
All right, any questions from the board? All right, well, Joe, we'll see you again next week.
Other than I'm confused.
Yeah, good luck in figuring out the curve.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're ready for him. Brian, I think Kirk is just outside the hall here if you want to.
They'll be ready in the case of copies.
All right, it's our next item on the agenda is item number 7, our 9:15 item. It's the approval of landfill scale approach paving quotes. Kirk and Dave, if you guys want to come up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
Hi. Hello.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys.
So why don't you explain a little bit about what we got going on here?
I'll give you a Reader's Digest version. How's that? I know how valuable time is. Essentially what this is, as you know, we have a scale project that's going on out at the landfill right now. And actually the scale will be set on Thursday. So we're pretty excited about that. But as part of the project, we had the highway department work with us on it. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dave now to explain to you all what they've done and where they're at right now.
A few months ago, we met with Kirk and the landfill staff and Wink and Associates, and they had a scale plan that we took a look at, and we thought we could maybe save a little money and do a lot of it in-house since we've got trucks and we can haul some of the gravel and some of the fill and build up the scale ramps and things. So we pulled out what we thought we could do in-house, and then we led a project a couple months ago, basically the scale only, just to see how it turned out and see if the prices came in good. We've never done that before. The project came in really well, and like Kirk said, the scale is going to be set on Thursday. So we thought, well, why not do another step forward and take another part of the bigger plan that we initially had and take quotes on concrete paving, being that all the stuff around the scale, it sits on a big concrete foundation, and we've got a guy out there that's already doing concrete work, so we took some quotes from some of the local concrete contractors, plus the guy that's doing the work out there, and the prices came in pretty decent there too. So I guess Kirk thought, why not go ahead and see if we could make it an all-weather surfacing here and wrap the project up here this fall, rather than the other option would be is to leave it gravel, like the approaches. As you come into the landfill, what you're essentially doing is you're just turning off the existing asphalt entrance, and you're going to get on the scale. There's an intercom there, and you correspond with the landfill attendant in the landfill office. Tell them who you are, what you've got. You go in, dump your load, turn around, and you come right back on the scale. So it is essentially a two-way scale. And then as you exit the scale, there's another kiosk there with an intercom and a printer. And then the person then would get a ticket with his inbound weight and his outbound weight. As well as there's some cameras. I think there's some requirements they're PCA type requirements that were already bid in the first phase, like I call it there. So this essentially would make the landfill scale project pretty much complete. All the electrical work is currently being done right now. There's an electrical contractor that's part of the initial scale contract, and turning out to be a pretty good project. I think Kirk thought maybe the grand total of contract work would be a little over 200,000 with this work and the scale, maybe 205, as much as $210,000.
Okay.
It's, Mr. Chairman, I should point out, it's, I think the reason, there's a couple reasons why we wanted to work with the Highway Department. Obviously, you guys had some really good experience with them, motor vehicle, what they did up there, and I've been really, really pleased with what they've done out there for us as well. I think it's saved us a lot of money, and I think, quite honestly, I think we have a better product as a result.
All right. John?
Did the pre-work get done already? I mean, you've done the fill and all that stuff?
Yep, between the landfill staff and county staff, we had the gravel hauled in, and we packed it and rolled it, and that was all done a few weeks ago. So essentially now about probably 85% of the gravel base work is already in place, and it turned out really good. After Saturday, 100% of the scale work should be done, the scale itself. So we need to haul in about 15% more of the gravel on one of the approaches coming in. For some reason, we left a little bit out there. So we need to coordinate that with the electrical contractor and the scale people and the concrete guy that's coming in Saturday to finish the concrete work. But once that's all done, then essentially you can put the surfacing on there. And I think we've got set up for like 8 inches of unreinforced concrete. It's almost like a small concrete driveway, essentially, or concrete road. Is the design that Nathan kind of put together for it. So
What kind of a weight limit can that handle then?
oh, it can handle any legal type loading, because I think we've got over 2 feet of gravel.
So whatever we
underneath
have on our 10-ton roads, that'll handle.
Yep, yep.
One more question. The quotes, there's quite a big difference in the quotes. Do you have any reason to think it's not complete?
I talked to the guy that provided the low quote today, and just to make sure that he wasn't missing anything, and I don't know if it's because he's already got to come back a couple times. He's been here once and did the foundation work. He's going to come back on Saturday to finish the concrete deck part. It goes over the top of the scale. So I don't know if that's why his price was a little bit cheaper. I know some of the other guys are pretty busy, and ideally this isn't the best time to bid a project. But I guess we thought we weren't really out anything getting quotes, so we thought we'd take them and see how it turned out. And I think the price is pretty decent. You can see we got obviously a little higher one. Op Construction's real busy. We do quite a bit of work with them. They're the one that did the curb and gutter down in Barnesville there under the underpass. They did that work for us. They've done work for us in Holly. I think some of the contractors are busy probably through freeze up, and adding this work on there, the prices are what they are.
Yeah, John raised a really good question, and my concern is that we have certain specs they have to meet.
Sure.
It's do we have that?
Correct. Yep.
Were all these entities bidding on the same specs?
Absolutely. Yep. Nathan put together a fair package that they, it wasn't quite like a state aid project as far as having tons and tons of, there's no prevailing wages and things like that, certain requirements you need for a state aid project. So that's another reason why the prices come a little cheaper, because they don't have to pay what they call the scale. They can pay their normal rate. So I think that helps a little bit on our end as well, being that it's funded by the county funds, not state funds.
All right.
Are you ready to receive a motion on this, or do you want to?
I guess I would recommend to Kirk that.
Yes, we are. We're ready.
Well, I would move we accept the low bid on this project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And one question, does it have to go by our attorney? I mean,
What we would planning on doing is put together a one-page contract. Being that it was under 100,000 or even under 50,000, we didn't require a performance bond on something like this, but we do have a one-page contract to do with all our other projects. And yeah, we would definitely run that by Jenny, make sure she approves the contract.
I want to include that in the motion then.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. Oftentimes when I see such a significant difference in one quote compared to the others, we got to make sure that we're protected and that
Absolutely.
The ultimate product is what we expected.
Sure.
And so I think that would be good to have that.
Okay.
All right. Okay. We have a motion in a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Dave? All right, we'll move into committee reports, and we'll start on the left today. Mr. Ingersoll.
Okay, on Tuesday, October 7th, Moorhead Planning Commission, general business. Then we recommended to the city council to rezone a 1-acre tract of land in Horizon Shores from transitional zone to regional commercial zone. And that is all I had last week, Mr. Chair.
Frank.
I had two very interesting meetings. I went to that Buffalo Red River watershed tour. And that was very interesting. I mean, we must have been around 30, 40 people on the bus there. And they took us to Hawley, looked at their project, went on to Glendon, Georgetown, Old Port project, and then went down to the Manson Slough. And it just gave me an appreciation of what the watershed board does for the county. I mean, I haven't been that involved in what they do and stuff like that, but it was a very good tour, you know, well-planned tour, and really show what they do and what they're doing as far as flood protection. You know, that Manson Slough is a big project down there. It's going to hold a lot of water down there. So I think I really compliment Bruce Albright what he's been doing with that, with the watershed. It was a good tour. Sunday I went to a 4-H program in Glendon. I guess it was good to see the participation we have from Clay County with the 4-H program, and I saw that John and Kevin, you got awards for your participation, and I think you should be complimented for what the 4-H has done in our county. That's it.
Thank you, Frank. Grant.
I had a meeting on the property tax abatement. We already discussed that. And then we had a meeting, detention advisory meeting, to discuss the budget implications of Cass County bringing their juveniles to our detention center, and we'll have more information on that later. So that was it for me.
Okay, John.
Okay, we, after the meeting last week on the 7th, we had a highway meeting. Frankly, I can't remember what we discussed at the highway meeting, but we'll let Brian and Kevin update us on that. On the 8th, we had interviews for the proposal for the SWAC, for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, to we call for proposals to study what the best route for us to go with would be for increasing recycling, and for adding a possible MRF to our material recycling facility. And really just the proposal calls for just a thorough study of our whole system to figure out what would be the best thing, and then get a recommendation afterwards. And I think we came up with a recommendation of from the people that we interviewed, and I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be announced, but I'm not sure if they've agreed to it or not yet. So, but it was a good interview. We frankly felt that all of the people that submitted proposals could do the job for us, and I think we chose the one that we felt most confident with. On the 9th and 10th, sorry I had to miss the tour for the watershed, because I was down at a futures meeting for Association of Minnesota Counties, and that, like always, was very, very interesting. One of the things that was probably most exciting to me was there was a presentation by Blue Earth County about what they call their CAP program, which is it's a community advisor or county ambassador program, where they train people. They have 20 at a time that they go through, and they train them in what every other department does. So the managers learn something about all the other departments, so that they have a much broader picture of what county is involved with. And it really has increased morale and excitement about the county, and these people have become true ambassadors in spreading the word about the good that the county does. So I really would like to have that reviewed and to see if that's a possibility for us to do. I think the excellence, Striving for Excellence Committee might be interested in that kind of a program. So, but we also had a number of other speakers that they were all interesting. Mark Ritchie, the outgoing Secretary of State, spent the evening with us talking about the election system in Minnesota and some of the difficult recount elections that he's been involved with and so on. So it was a very interesting event. We did have candidates forum on Saturday morning at the library here, and Kevin and I both participated in that, and that was an interesting time like always. And then we were at attended the 4-H Awards banquet on Sunday evening, which Frank already talked about. And that's it.
All right, thank you, John. Excuse me. All right, I had on Tuesday, the 7th of October, I also had the highway tracking meeting, and the biggest topic that we've discussed is dealing with some of our maintenance facilities, and I think it's probably appropriate to talk a little bit about it here, and there's a long way to go on it, but we have had a request, for example, with our about somebody else having interest in where we have our Holly shop located, and so in meeting with these folks, we decided that it might be an appropriate time to take a look at how we could restructure some of where we house our equipment and how efficient we are, in the whole process of getting our blades and our graders and everything to the different areas in the districts. So having said that, we asked our highway department staff to put together a proposed plan on what that would look like in this particular district, where we'd be and again, always anytime we can consolidate and save the taxpayer and also improve the services to our county, that's our ultimate goal. And so we are looking in this one particular area about combining two, and of course this isn't final, there's a long way to go on it yet, but we're looking at the option of combining two of our facilities into one central location that would still very adequately serve that district. There's a long way to go on it, but we have asked our staff now to do further research on the land values of what our property that we currently own we could get for, and then also then what the market would require us to pay for this one site to offset these two. That's an ongoing process. We won't know till that study is done to determine if it's feasible from a cost standpoint to do. Our staff, our county engineers are fairly certain that the service portion of it would be well served by doing this. But so anyway, there's those discussions that are ongoing, and that opportunity again presented itself to us by folks in the Holly area coming to us inquiring about our land. John, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and now that you've reminded me what we talked about, it's a very important issue, I think, and exciting because the staff really began to, our maintenance foreman really began to look at the servicing our road maintenance from a different perspective and changing the direction of the flow, which could enhance the service. And it's interesting, sometimes we get locked into the way we've been doing things for the last many years, and we don't see the other opportunities. But this gave us a chance to look at the whole system from a different perspective, and one that may serve our people better. So that was kind of exciting, I think.
Yeah, and of course we had other topics to that, and we'll defer those to our administrator given his update. Just as we know, he takes good minutes of our records of our meetings, so he can brush up where we left things short. Okay, then also then on the 8th, I did partake in the, along with Commissioner Everett, in the solid waste study interviews for the MRF, trying to, it's basically to find somebody who can guide us through a feasibility study. And as Commissioner Everett said, we did at the end of that we had 3 interviews that day, and we did come to an agreement. And by the way, we did have members of the Morehead City Council present for the interviews as well, along with our solid waste staff, both from Clay County and the city of Morehead. So we had a fairly good cross-section of people who would be dealing on this issue. And we have come up with a front runner in the process, and I believe that's actually going to come before this board next week for the board's approval. Then on Thursday the 9th, we did have a diversion authority meeting, and there were obviously several items that talked about. The most significant one to me was and of course that's been in the media, that we did get the diversion authority to reduce the construction plans on the Oxbow Hickson-Baki levees from the 500-year level to the 100-year level, with the hopes that will satisfy the DNR and their concerns. That was brought up by myself. I made the motion, and it was Nancy Otto seconded it, and it did receive unanimous support from the authority, so that was a good thing. There was also some discussion about ongoing work, and John, I think you might not have been able to attend maybe a couple of the land management meetings because of your other commitments, but we continue to work on this process about how the ag producers would be compensated in times of this project being used. And I think we've got this contract set up with NDSU. John, I don't know if you want to follow up on any comments on it, but I think ultimately the goal is to make sure that we have a good plan in place that ultimately will protect these producers in the event that we have to initiate and use the diversion plan in the staging area. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. And there was also, and I did hear a little bit too, there was, in the past, there's always been some concern about, we have at least one, probably more organic producers too, so I think there's been some movement in the right direction on potentially being able to do something for them. I just heard that late, but I'm hopeful that is true, that we can also assist those organic farmers. And then on Saturday the 11th, as Commissioner Everett said, I did attend the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum that was held at the Morehead Public Library. And then on Sunday, I was pleased to get over to that 4-H Federation annual meeting that was held in Glendon. And I'll tell you what, I am still impressed with that process and how they get these young children to really learn about policies and procedures that will be helpful to them throughout their whole life. And those young kids that ran those meetings, and they were making motions, and they had to fill their slate of candidates for different positions, and these young boys and girls got up and they stated why they felt they were qualified for a position. It was just really neat to watch, and it reminded me of the days back when my son was involved in 4-H, because but it's going strong, and thankfully we've got a good group of people running that 4-H program here in Clay County, and I was just excited with what I saw. I just wanted to make that comment, so. Okay, we'll move on to Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the first one I have on my list is highway tracking. You guys did cover it very well. We did have just some very minor discussions on the Tiger grants and a follow-up on that issue and things. But I think you both covered it well, but Commissioner Everett capitalized on something that did stick in my mind from that meeting as well, and that is, as they were looking at how to service that area, they really felt they opened up their eyes a little bit on the direction of travel and how they get to certain roads and how they cover it, because they used the GPS system, or the GIS system, I should say, and laid out the distance from certain locations that they were looking at, and even if there's no change in building structures, they feel they can maybe run a better, more efficient operation out of that. And just to remind the commissioners from time to time that, you know, we not only do all the county roads in the county, but we do now 27 out of the 30 township roads as well, because we added one back in this year. So that gets to be approximately 800 miles of county roads and maybe about 720 right in that area of township roads. So those folks, after a snowstorm, they got a lot of miles to cover. And you've provided awfully good equipment for them, though. They run about 13 road graders and 12 trucks. So they've got a lot to do. And we know the public needs to get out very early in the morning on that. So I won't belabor that, but it was a good, very good meeting, and I think we made some real good progress in regards to those things. We had another meeting of the residential abatement, which we presented today, but had some things to iron out. I think that went extremely well. Had some more little budget discussion with Darren. Darren wants to get a better understanding of the budgeting process. So that's very good. Glad to see that. The solid waste interviews, and again, that is for a study to be done on a landfill and a MRF. Part of the MRF is a
Not a landfill.
No, I'm sorry.
Not a landfill.
Transfer station. I'm glad you said that. A transfer station to transfer the garbage out to the landfill. But a transfer station. But the MRF is a big part of that too. And what that is basically a system that separates certain types of garbage, solid waste, that can be recycled, can be taken out for other purposes. Metals can be sold out of those things, different things. So it's just a study in regards to that. So that's a real positive thing. We had the Chamber Public Affairs Committee last, I think, Thursday morning. A lot of good information there, and they're talking about starting a new, I can't remember the nickname that they had applied for it, but to have different professional speakers from the community come in maybe once a month in the morning to talk about what's going on, and they would be public meetings. I think a very positive thing in that regards. I attended the land management meeting. Commissioner Everett, I know you are on that committee as well. Commissioner Campbell's covered it very well. We talked somewhat about the agricultural issue, but the big one that we discussed was the levy around Hickson, or Oxbow, Hickson, Baki, and the reduction of that, making a recommendation to the full diversion board. And then, of course, I sat in on the diversion board meeting, and I think I'll mention that what was really kind of interesting to me, I wasn't here when this all started in the county, but there was a history as to the makeup of the boards and how it got to where it's at, because there's been a lot of discussion about representation on the diversion board, and I think we all have to kind of remember sometimes and go back in history and say that if the first study that the Corps did was for a diversion on the Minnesota side. And that was pretty heavily weighted by Minnesotans at that time. I think it was a larger percentage of Minnesotans on that board than North Dakotans. And then there was progress made, and it was pushed over to the North Dakota side, and Minnesota was very happy about that. And I think Mr. Chair, be so bad just to have that 5-minute presentation. Maybe if Keith would come over and give that to the board here.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder, because we forget, you know.
I think, I think the key there, and of course, that was a major concern of many throughout Clay County, from north to south, when the Corps originally put out that. And I think it's important for everyone to know that the votes that took place to move the diversion from Minnesota to North Dakota had more Minnesota votes than it had North Dakota votes. So back in that process, when the diversion was scheduled to be, or first planned to be on the Minnesota side, the committees were designed heavier with Minnesota than it was with North Dakota, in all fairness, because that's where the diversion was planned to go. So now, once we all agreed, and by the way, it was a unanimous agreement by all 4 governing entities and the 2 watersheds to move the diversion to North Dakota, 100% vote in favor of it. And it was at that time then that it was determined, okay, well, now there needs to be a shift in the representation, because now most of the land issues, let's face it, are in North Dakota. That does not take away from the impacts that are happening in the staging area of Minnesota. We constantly got to always try to figure out ways to even reduce that. But so that history lesson was good, and I do think it would be an appropriate deal. I mean, Frank is new enough on here too, where you hadn't seen that history, and I think it might be just really good for Frank, and I think some of that was even before Wayne was on here as well to see that. So that might be something good for you to schedule.
I think so.
All right.
Very good. Also, Joe and I had a couple of meetings in regards to this winter maintenance preparation, and it's very important. It's Joe's first time. We know that service is really important. We know open government is very important to you as commissioners, and that's why even this process is for professional service. But we want to be as transparent, laid out on line, make sure that you guys know that we're considering every aspect of it when we recommend to you folks the best service and best value to the county and to the contractors that want to compete for this. It's a public place and public money that's going for it, so very important. Had a discussion that's already been talked about, the juvenile budget and the adding of Cass County into the juvenile center. We had a couple meetings, or not necessarily meetings, just information exchanges with Nancy and another county or two in regards to the Menards case. You're all well aware of that, and we've seen it in the paper too and things. So that is progressing, and just want you to be aware of that. We'll certainly give you guys an update after this preliminary stage is over. We plan to do it in stages, and it's going to be a costly endeavor depending upon to what level it goes to. So we'll keep you guys abreast on that. I know Darren and Mike Gringle have started budget or I should say contract negotiations with 4 union groups. And then in addition to that, I guess there were some business agents involved, and I had a meeting with one of them in regards to settling a grievance out of it. So that's kind of been my schedule. So thank you, Mr.
Right.
Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Brian, I would like to request something here. First off, your recommendation to have that video presentation would be good, and I think you should schedule that soon. And also, could we have, like, for the board meeting on the 28th of October, an update on where we are with our 2015 budget plan?
Okay.
We passed the preliminary levy, but the budget process still needs to go forward. It still needs to be reviewed between now and December. So I would certainly like us to at least be addressing that once a month between now and when we have to ultimately make that a review of were there any changes that have occurred or surprises that have happened since September 15th when we made the levy? We need to know those things, and I don't want to see a surprise in December. So if you could do that for us, maybe to schedule an update on the 28th would be very, very nice. Anything else, Vicki? Do you have anything else for us? All right. Okay, we'll stand adjourned.